Hi, I'm Ashley with Ankarsrum USA, and I am so excited to introduce you to the Ankarsrum Assistant Original. I'm going to give you a little bit of history and then some basic tips for starting to use this machine. So a little bit of history. This machine was first introduced onto the market in 1940 by Electrolux of Sweden. In 1969, Electrolux approached a very prominent motor company named Ankarsrum Motors in Sweden and asked if they would please produce the motor as well as assemble the machine in their factory, and that is where it is still made today. So Ankarsrum took over the production of the Electrolux Assistant in 1969. Then fast forward a little bit further to the early 1990s when the machine first came into the United States. It has been known by lots of different names, the Magic Mill, the Verona, and for a short period of time it was known as the Electrolux Assistant, and now today it is known as the Ankarsrum Assistant Original. A few things that set this machine apart from other stand mixers on the market. Number one is the beautiful design. Unlike other stand mixers who have the motor that come up over the top of the bowl and the bowl is stationary, the Ankarsrum has the motor and the transmission all in the base, making it very, very stable. And with this machine, the base is stationary and then the bowl is what turns. We'll show you that in just a few minutes. Another thing that sets this machine apart is just the powerful motor. Here in the US, where we have a 110 volt electrical system, the machine comes with a 600 watt motor. In Europe and countries that have a 220 volt electrical system, those machines have a powerful 1500 watt motor. Either way, the machine is built to last. On top of having a very powerful motor, the other amazing feature of this machine is that it is not a gear-driven motor. So with less moving parts on the inside, that's less things that can wear out over time, and then it also makes the machine very, very quiet. Another feature is the worm gear transmission, which means it is very, very efficient in its power. This machine currently comes with a 7-year warranty on the entire motor assembly, the motor, the transmission, and the circuit board, which is far and above any other warranty on the market. So that's the insides. Now let's talk about the outside of this machine and just the design element. With a 7-liter or 8-quart stainless steel bowl without a head over the top, it makes it very easy to add ingredients while you're mixing, and then it also allows for a lot of volume. The highest volume of flour that you can add to the Ankarsrum Assistant is about 21 cups of flour, and what's great about the design, which I'll show you here in a minute, is that this machine doesn't care if you're doing a small amount of dough, just 1 pound worth of dough, all the way up to 12 to 15 pounds of dough at one time. So let's talk about the design. We've got our base here on the bottom, motor, transmission. We've also got 2 knobs on the front. We have a power knob here on the left. This is our on-off knob, plus it has a 12-minute timer also built into this machine so that you can set the timer to mix, knead, or whip whatever you're making for a certain amount of time, and when that time runs out, the machine turns off all on its own. Then the right knob is your speed control knob. Now, we talked about how this does not have a gear-driven motor system and it has a worm gear transmission. That means that we do not have speeds 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Instead, you have a variable speed motor, so with the turn of the knob, the bowl increases in speed. So, with that in mind, we like to explain it this way. Think of a clock. With 12 o'clock being the lowest speed, you're typically going to knead your bread dough somewhere between 1, 2, and 3 o'clock. And then for some of the other attachments or the whipping bowl system, you're going to use 6, 7, and up to 8 o'clock, which is the highest speed. So let's talk about what you get with the basic package of the Ankarsrum Assistant Original. So we talked about how you get the 7-liter or 8-quart stainless steel bowl system. There are 2 different mixing tools to use with this bowl, but I want to first talk about the plastic whipping bowl. You see here that we have a white lid that actually fits on the whisk bowl to help with control splatter and things like that when you're doing whipping cream or egg whites. This bowl also fits the stainless steel bowl and acts as a dust cover when not in use, and it also works as a great lid when you're rising your dough right here in the bowl. So we're going to remove this so that I can show you the plastic whipping bowl. We'll just move this to the side for a second. So you also get this plastic whipping bowl system. We're going to first put our white post here. We're going to slide our plastic bowl. You're going to put the handle facing you and the spout facing the back of the machine. Now you also get 2 different whisk options to use with the plastic whipping bowl. You get the multi-wire balloon whisks. This is going to be used for egg whites, whipping cream, things that are light, things that you're wanting to aerate. You do not want to use these multi-wire whisks for creaming butter and sugar or making thick icings or frostings or cookie dough. For that, you want to use the single wire beater. So let me just show you really quickly how you're going to take these apart. Just hold the center here and just pull. This is great that these come apart for easy cleaning. Now you have a gear and you have the beater housing assembly. Everything can be washed separately. And then just to put this back together, we're gonna sit the gear there. We're gonna hold it in place. And now we're going to pop our single wire beaters, making sure the teeth line up. And now we have single wire beaters. This is gonna be for your very soft cookie doughs or batters that you are not wanting to aerate. So muffin batter or maybe a cake batter that you don't want to whip a whole lot of air into. This is where you're going to use your single wire beaters. They sit here, and now each one of them individually turns while the entire beater assembly is turning. One quick tip about the whisk assembly that's very important, especially when using the multi-wire balloon whisks. Because you have 2 whisk system and because the whisks are moving individually because of this gear in the center and because the entire beater assembly is also turning, these whisk egg whites and whipping cream very quickly. So the first couple of times that you use these attachments for whipping egg whites and whipping cream, we strongly encourage you to stay right here at the machine and don't walk away. We have spoken with many customers over the years who walked away, and before they knew it, their whipping cream had turned to butter, which is actually great if you want to make your own butter, but their egg whites had actually broken back down and were back to being liquefied. So hang tight, watch it so that you get a feel for how quickly this works. The plastic whipping bowl is made out of a Triton plastic. This is a non-porous plastic, which means it will not hold on to fat molecules. So if you do whipping cream or you cream some butter and sugar with your single wire beaters, always be sure to use completely room temperature butter. You do not want to put cold butter into the Ankarsrum as the beaters are not strong enough to cut through that super cold butter. So always room temperature butter. So if you do butter or you do whipping cream, you can wash with warm soapy water, completely dry it, and it's not going to leave a greasy residue, and you can turn around and do egg whites. It is also a heat-resistant plastic, so it's BPA-free, and it is safe to pour boiling sugar syrup down the side of the bowl for marshmallows and things like that. Super, super fun. So we're going to set this off to the side, and as I mentioned before, the white lid does also fit the plastic whipping bowl to help when mixing egg whites or whipping cream and things like that to control some of that splatter. And if you do want to make your own butter with the multi-wire balloon whisks, then I definitely recommend using the lid in place as the butter fat begins to separate from the butter milk. It can start to really splatter a lot. So we're going to set this off to the side. Now I want to show you the two mixing options that you have when using the stainless steel bowl. The first option is your dough hook. The dough hook fits into the machine in this large hole back here. Then you're also going to use the bowl scraper, and it's going to sit here and rest up against the side of the bowl. Now the arm on the machine is spring-loaded. So we're going to pull up on this pin. We're going to push the arm towards the center of the bowl. We're going to position the dough hook right in the middle. We're going to push down on this pin so that it locks into the dough hook. And now we're going to tighten the knob here in the back to hold the arm in place. And this is how you're going to use the dough hook. The bowl turns and your mixture mixes around the dough hook, and the dough hook is stationary. If you are used to a traditional stand mixer that only has the option of a dough hook for kneading your bread dough, this is an okay option, but I want to show you my preferred method for mixing any type of dough: a stiff dough, a high hydration dough, a small batch, or a large batch. So let me show you. It's interesting, the dough hook actually was an addition to this machine only when it came into the United States. In Sweden, from 1940 until 1990, they were only using what I'm going to show you next, which is the dough roller and the scraper together. So again, we're going to hold the roller here in the middle of the bowl. We're going to lift up on the pin. We're going to slide it to the center. We're going to push that pin down into the hole on the roller, and now we're going to allow the roller to come rest up against the side of the bowl. And this is how you're going to start any mixing project. So if you want to do a big batch of cake batter, or a large batch of cookie batter, or a small batch of cookie dough, or a small cake batter, you can certainly do it. A small batch of yeasted dough, or a large batch of yeasted dough, this is the position you're going to start with. Now, because this arm is spring-loaded, makes it very easy to adjust the placement of the arm and the roller depending on what you're mixing. So let's just say you're going to do a large batch of cookie dough. Again, you want to make sure you use room temperature butter, but you're going to go ahead and add your butter and your sugar here. You're going to turn the machine on. And now with the roller setting up against the side of the bowl, it's now spinning and smushing that butter. Then the trick to creaming butter and sugar with the stainless steel bowl and the roller and scraper is you're going to mix at a very high speed. So somewhere around 6 o'clock. You may adjust the roller slightly off the side, tighten the knob, and leave it there, and the roller is actually going to whip your butter and your sugar together. Then slow the machine back down, start adding your eggs and your flour and all of your other ingredients for your cookie dough. Today we're just going to mix up some basic flour and water so that you can see how this machine works in mixing a bread dough. So again, we're going to start with the roller against the side of the bowl. Scraper is in position. I'm just going to add some water. You want to always start with your liquids with the Ankarsrum, because the roller and scraper as a kneading option is very similar to how you would knead by hand, with the scraper scraping the dough up off the side of the bowl, the roller kneading it almost like you would with a closed fist kneading technique. So it's very, very gentle. It doesn't care how sticky the dough is. It's still going to develop those protein strands found in wheat flour, and then the kneading process is going to develop those gluten strands, making them stretchy and elastic. So a lot of times you can get away with using a little less flour with the Ankarsrum because of how it kneads. So I always say add your liquids first, then start adding your flour, and then go by look and by feel. So we're going to start with the machine on the lowest speed. We've got our liquids in the bowl, and so now we're just going to start adding some flour in. Now, a lot of people ask us, well, where exactly do I position the arm and the roller when I'm making my bread dough? And that's a hard thing to say exactly where to put it, but I'm going to show you some tricks and some tips on how to figure out the perfect arm and roller placement for your particular recipe. So as our dough starts to thicken up, as we add more flour. We're gonna increase our speed to about 1 o'clock. If any ingredients get hung up in the middle, it's so easy to pick them up with the spring-loaded arm. Add a little bit more flour, increase our speed. Now, if I'm going for a super high hydration recipe, then this might be where I stop adding my flour. I'm gonna adjust my arm and my roller slightly off the side of the bowl. I want it to still be putting pressure on the dough as it's passing between the roller and the side of the bowl, but I don't want it so close that as the dough starts coming together, the dough starts moving the arm in and out. So I want a really gentle knead, so I'm gonna go slightly off. Now, let's say I have a recipe that is making a stiffer dough. So I'm gonna keep adding flour so that you can see how you're going to adjust the roller for a stiffer dough recipe. And the great thing about the Ankarsrum, let's say that you end up adding a little too much flour and you're like, oh, I didn't want it that stiff. It's okay, it's so easy to just drizzle in a little bit more water, let it absorb into the dough, and you're totally fine. So now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you with a stiffer dough what you don't wanna do. You do not want to crank the speed up and have the arm setting against the side of the bowl. You don't want it bouncing around like this. So for a stiffer dough, you're actually going to turn the speed down. You're gonna adjust the arm and the roller slightly off the side, adjusting it still so that it's close enough that it's putting pressure on the dough, but far enough away from the side that as the dough passes behind it, it's not banging the arm in and out. So you don't want it close that it's doing all this movement, because what's gonna happen is your tension knob is gonna slowly loosen and the arm is gonna move back to the side of the bowl, and then you're gonna hear it banging back and forth. And you may have noticed that your tension arm, you're tightening it so that it doesn't go back to the side, but the arm is designed to still be able to freely move to the center even with the knob tightened. So the tendency for a lot of people is to crank down really hard on this knob, thinking that the arm isn't supposed to move anymore. But you don't want to do that, or you could run the risk of stripping out the threads inside this knob. So position it just far enough away that it's still putting pressure on the dough, but not so close that it is moving the arm a lot, and not so far away that it's not actually putting pressure. So you're gonna have to determine that perfect spot for you. Now, the great thing about the Ankarsrum, I mentioned the timer earlier. So with a single click of the knob, you've got continuous on. It'll mix until you turn it off. Or once you get all of your ingredients in and you're ready to start your timer for kneading or mixing, then you're gonna continue turning the on-off knob, setting the timer for your desired time up to 12 minutes, and then when the timer runs out, the machine will turn off on its own. Now, if you need to stop the machine, if you look in and you feel like, oh, my dough is ready, and maybe the timer still has 2 minutes on it, you can totally force it off without hurting that timer. So again, single click is gonna be continuous on, and then once you engage that timer, then when it runs out, the machine will turn off on its own. Now, I'm wearing a microphone, but I hope you have gotten the sense of just how quiet this machine is, and that's because of the worm gear transmission and the fact that this does not have a gear-driven motor system. So I hope that these tips have helped. One other tool that you get with the basic package that I actually love, it's really the simple things really, is this great little bowl scraper. This actually has a small little notch here on the spatula so that you can get all of the dough or cookie batter or whatever you're making, icing, out of the roller. And then off of the spatula as well. It also fits the curve of the bowl, so it's super easy to scrape all your dough, maybe to the center of the bowl, and then have it in place for your dough to rise right in the bowl. So I hope that this has helped give you confidence in using the machine, a little bit of history and an introduction into the amazing things that this machine can do. Please visit our website at AnkarsrumOriginalUSA.com. You can also go to Ankarsrum.com, and that is the English version of the Swedish website. We have so many more videos and recipes available on both of those sites to help you get started in using your new kitchen assistant by Ankarsrum. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you'll tune in to more videos at a later date. Thank you.